The Grace Company has 20 years of manufacturing experience with quilting frames and hoops. We've put that expertise into every product we engineer and produce. This is the case with our newly redesigned Little Gracie machine quilting system. The Little Gracie is a no-based machine quilting system that turns your personal sewing machine into a home quilting system. The Little Gracie now comes complete with full tabletops, legs, and rail assembly. It also includes 2 sizes with your purchase, crib size with a 64-inch rail length, and queen size with 98-inch rails. The frame's design surpasses any other on the market in engineering and sturdiness. It is made from the perfect combination of engineered wood, aluminum, and plastic parts, all designed with the quilting process in mind. The wood is premium birch ply hardwood, a cross-layered wood that resists warping even in extremely humid conditions. This material gives the frame incredible support and durability, as well as a warm appearance, ideal for the look you want in your home. With its sturdy design, we have not hesitated to give it a 5-year warranty on all parts, among the longest warranties in the industry. The Little Gracie comes with a carriage that has handles allowing you to quilt from either side of the frame. Both sides have trigger handles that mechanically compress your foot pedal, so you don't have to worry about having the foot pedal on the floor or pressing it with your hands. You can stand at the front of the frame to freehand quilt, or at the back to follow pantographs. The wooden stylus used to trace patterns can attach to either side of the handle assembly. You may also follow groove patterns from the back of the frame using the optional Pattern Perfect. This can be used to create a variety of repeatable patterns on your quilt with ease. The carriage travels on steel roller bearings that ride on smooth, seamless plastic track. This combination makes for the smoothest, quietest, and most professional-feeling ride of any system. Here's another feature you won't find on any other system: Fabri-Fast rails. This new fabric attaching system is the first of its kind. Now you can install your fabric layer directly into the rail of your frame without damaging your fabric with thumbtacks or tape. The provided tool helps you insert your fabric layer into the slot using the plastic tubing that's also included. Once the fabric is in, it stays in until you pull it out. This innovation gives you the fastest, cleanest way to install your fabric. Front-to-back tension on your quilt is achieved using the 30-tooth ratchet wheels and double lock stops. This gives you precise tension along the entire length of your quilt. Another great addition to the redesigned Little Gracie is the new side tension system now included. 4 bungee clamps now come with the frame. These are firm gripping clamps attached to bungee cords that are 4 feet in length. Simply clamp down on the edge of your quilt, pull the cord tight through the hole, and fasten the cord in the slot. The long 4-foot cords make it possible to have the same excellent side tension for smaller quilts. To top it all off, the Little Gracie has a fold-up feature that makes it possible to store the frame in a slightly more compact area. There are several popular accessories available with your Little Gracie quilting system. The 4th rail kit is an extra rail that sits below the other 3 and is great for keeping your batting up off the floor, preventing it from getting dirty or entangled. The Grace Speed Control Box is a device that bypasses your machine's foot pedal, giving you control of your sewing machine at your fingertips. It maintains a constant machine speed which can be adjusted by the turn of the knob. Starting and stopping your machine is done with the push of a button. The Grace Speed Control Box is compatible with most newer quilting machines and some older models as well. Go to our website for a list of these compatible machines or call us to see if your machine is compatible. The Grace Pattern Perfect is a template system that provides an excellent and easy way to do repeatable patterns on your quilt with hardly any practice required. It comes with a metal stylus and attachment along with grooved patterns that can be used individually or combined with each other. Other accessories include height-adjustable legs that can raise the height of your frame to accommodate taller quilters, a gooseneck lamp, and true color bulb for better lighting on your work area. The Little Gracie machine quilting system is a complete system with only your sewing machine to add. For the price you pay, it is absolutely the best value available. It is even less expensive than some systems that require your own table to mount to. It is quite simply the best return on your investment. This segment will take you through each step of assembly for your Little Gracie quilting frame. Before you get started, we suggest you do the following. First, find a clear space in which to assemble your frame. Depending on which size you assemble the frame, you may want to put it together in the room in which it will be used. Second, remove all parts from both boxes and open the inner boxes as well. Once this is done, take inventory of the parts you have, checking them against the parts list provided at the beginning of the instruction booklet. Hardware has been packaged by type to make them easier to identify. If you appear to be missing any parts, call the Grace Company direct at 1-800-264-0644. Office hours are Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you call after hours, you can leave a message with detail on your missing part, or you can leave your contact information for us to call you back. Once you've taken inventory of all your parts, you are ready to begin assembling. This video will supplement what's already in your instruction booklet. It is important that you read each step in the instruction booklet completely before assembling that step. You can pause after each video segment to allow yourself time to identify the parts needed and to complete each step. Prior to step 1, you find a list of the basic tools needed. These include a 7/16 socket wrench or adjustable wrench, a Phillips screwdriver, an Allen wrench which we provide, and a Faber-Fast tool also provided. We have marked an L and R on the inside of each part to make them easier to identify. Let's begin with steps 1 and 2, assembling hardware to your rail mount ends. First, identify your left and right take-up rail mount ends. There are 2 1/4-inch holes in each part. Push an 1.5-inch carriage bolt through the hole, starting from the inside of the part. The bolt head should be on the side with the L and R marked on it, as pictured. Some holes may be a little tight, requiring you to tap the bolts to get them through. Place a 1/4-inch flat washer on the end of each bolt, followed by a jam nut. Finally, tighten the jam nuts completely on each bolt, drawing the rounded head of the bolt all the way to the surface of the wood. Please note that it is critical that each nut is completely tight to prevent the bolt from turning in later steps. Now do the same for step 2 with the left and right fabric layer rail mount ends. Next, locate the right rail mount end. Starting from the inside of the piece, place the right take-up rail mount end in the slot nearest the front of the piece, with the 2 carriage bolts coming through the slot as shown. Place the right fabric layer rail mount end in the other slot in the same manner. Be sure all the R's are facing the same direction. Now fasten the pieces together by placing a 1/4-inch flat washer on the 2 bottom bolts, followed by a nylock nut. Tighten the nylock nuts onto the bolts, leaving just enough room to still allow the washer to spin freely. Place an 1.25-inch fender washer onto the end of the 2 remaining bolts, followed by a plastic knob. Now repeat this process for the left side parts. Now identify the right frame end. Place 6 1.5-inch carriage bolts through the holes on the right frame end, starting from the inside. Do not put bolts through the 2 holes on each end of the right frame end. Place a washer and jam nut on the end of each bolt and tighten the jam nuts completely. Again, make sure the nuts are all the way tight to prevent the bolts from moving when more parts are placed on it in future steps. Repeat this process for the left frame end. You will now mount the right rail mount end assembly to the right frame end by placing the 2 top bolts of the right frame end through the bottom slot of the right rail mount. Be sure the R's on the parts are facing the same direction. Next, place a fender washer and plastic knob onto each bolt and hand tighten the knobs. Repeat this step for the left side. Connect the side leg B braces to the right and left back side legs by positioning the end of the brace into the cutout in the leg. Place a rectangle nut in the T-slot and then thread a 45mm connector bolt through the leg and into the T-slot. Continue until the bolt threads into the nut and tighten completely using an Allen wrench. Now connect the A leg braces to the back left and the front right legs in the same manner. Next, install the right front and back legs to the right frame end assembly. Place the pre-installed bolts in the frame ends, through the slots and hole in the tops of the legs. Make sure the R's are facing the same direction as you do this. Place a 1/4-inch flat washer and nylock nut onto the bottom bolt. Tighten the nut, leaving it just loose enough to allow the washer to spin freely. Then place a fender washer and plastic knob on the top bolt in each leg. Hand tighten the knobs. Repeat this process for the left legs and left frame end. You will now determine whether you will be assembling your frame in crib or queen size. Whichever size you decide, you'll begin by connecting tables 1 and 2 to the front and back crib track supports. Pay close attention to the diagram in Step 9. When the crib tables 1 and 2 are properly positioned, the end of the front and back aluminum track supports that have 2 holes side by side will be on the end of table 2. The back crib track support attaches to the slotted side of the tabletops as pictured. You may wish to stand the table on its side to more easily tighten the nuts onto the bolts. First, place a 3/4-inch Phillips panhead screw through the table and then through the hole in the front crib aluminum track support. Place a 1/4-inch flat washer and jam nut onto the end of the screw. Tighten the nut completely using a wrench while holding the head of the screw steady with a screwdriver. Place screws through the other 2 holes and fasten them with washers and nuts as well. Next, complete this process for table 2. Be sure the slotted side of the tables are on the same side. Once completed, attach the back crib aluminum track support to the other end of tables 1 and 2 in the same manner. If you are assembling your frame in queen size, repeat this same process using table 3 and the front and back queen track supports. The number 3 on the table should be located just above the 2 side-by-side holes in the aluminum track support as pictured in the instructions. Attach the middle leg spacers by placing the flat side of the spacer against the front crib aluminum track support at the seam of tables 1 and 2. Place a 2-inch Phillips panhead screw through the holes in the track support and then through the middle leg spacers. Then place a 3/16-inch flat washer and 1/4-inch jam nut onto each bolt and tighten the nuts completely. Do this on both track supports. If assembling the frame in queen size, you will now connect table 3 to the crib assembly using the table splices. Connect these to the insides of the track supports in a similar manner as the middle leg spacers. First, place 2 2-inch Phillips panhead screws through the 2 middle holes of the track support and splice piece. Next, place 3/4-inch screws through the 2 outer holes. Place small 3/16-inch flat washers and jam nuts onto the ends of each bolt. Complete this process for both splices. Install the appropriate size track into the aluminum track supports based on the size you've assembled. If assembling in crib size, slide the 65.5-inch track, flat side down, into the slots of the 2 track supports. The crib size tracks may be already pre-assembled in your crib track supports. If assembling in queen size, install the longer 99-inch tracks, again flat side down. You will now connect the right end of the table assembly to the right frame end. It may be helpful at this point to have a second person prop up the other table end while completing this step. Place 1-inch Phillips panhead screws through the 4 holes in the frame end and thread them into the holes of the track supports. Next, attach the 2 leg braces to the track supports using 3/4-inch screws. These will go through the track supports and thread into the T-nuts already installed in the leg braces. Lay the frame down as pictured. Install middle leg A to the 2 bolts coming through the track supports and middle leg spacers as pictured. Note that middle leg A has a slot and a hole. Place a 1/4-inch flat washer and nylock nut onto the bolt that goes through the hole in middle leg A. Tighten this nut, leaving it loose enough to still spin the washer freely. Place a fender washer and plastic knob on the remaining bolt and hand tighten the knob. Repeat this process for middle leg B on the other 2 bolts. If assembling in queen size, Repeat this process to install a second pair of middle legs at the table splice. Be sure the middle leg A is installed on the same end as the other A leg. Now connect the A and B legs by installing the middle leg brace. Place the brace in the pockets cut out in each leg. Place rectangle nuts in the T-slots of the brace and thread 45mm bolts through the holes of the legs and into the T-slots of the brace. Tighten these completely using an Allen wrench. Now you will assemble the aluminum rails according to the size of your frame. If you have assembled the crib size, simply use the 64-inch rails alone. If you've chosen queen size, you will first couple the 64-inch rails to the 34-inch queen size rail extensions. This is done using small socket head bolts that thread through the slots of the rails and into the threaded holes of the inner coupler. Use the smaller Allen wrench to completely tighten these bolts. Next, you will fasten a round end cap on one end of the rail and a square end cap on the opposite end. To do this, you will first insert a number 10 square nut into the slots of each end cap. Next, push the end caps into the end of each rail. Fasten each end cap by placing a socket head screw through the hole in the end of the rail and into the square nut. Tighten these screws using the same smaller Allen wrench. As you prepare to place your rails on the frame, align the rails with the square end caps toward the left side of the frame. As pictured in the instructions, place the ratchet wheels on the square end caps with the teeth facing forward on two of the rails and back on the third rail. Next, place the rails on the frame. The take-up rail and second rail have the wheel teeth facing forward. The third rail's teeth face back. Finally, fasten shoulder end caps on the ends of each rail using the number 8 by 7/8 screws and a Phillips screwdriver. Next, assemble the 3 ratchet stops to the left side rail mount ends. Do this by placing a 1/4 inch by 1.5 inch truss bolt through the hole in the stop and into the metal insert in the rail mount. Hand tighten these bolts into the insert nut. Do not use a tool to tighten, as over-tightening may cause the bolt to push through the wood. Looking at the stops from the inside of the frame, the stop on the bottom rail will tilt to the right, and the other 2 will tilt to the left. Now you will assemble the sewing machine carriage. Note that the top and bottom carriage bases have been pre-assembled. To complete the top carriage, first you will attach the right and left handle bases. Place the top carriage so the round cone thread bases are toward you. The left-hand base assembles on the left side of the carriage. Install 2 30mm connector bolts through the holes in the bottom of the handle base and through the 2 holes closest to the bolts. To get the nuts started, it is easier to tilt the handles in slightly. Then straighten the handles and tighten the nuts completely using a wrench. While tightening, it will be necessary to steady the heads of the bolts using the Allen wrench. Next, you will assemble the pedal platform and cross brace. Do this by placing the larger foot pedal platform in the larger pockets toward the back of the handle bases. Place a 45mm connector bolt through the holes on each side so they go into the T-slots of the pedal platform. Place rectangle nuts in the T-slots and thread the bolts into the rectangle nuts. Tighten completely using an Allen wrench. Be sure the hole for the lamp faces toward the front handles. The cone thread holder is comprised of a 3-inch carriage bolt and 3 round wooden wheels. Assemble these by placing the 3 wheels onto the bolt. Next, place the end of the bolt through the hole in either cone thread base. Which hole you choose will be based on which side your thread will go onto your machine. Fasten your cone thread holder using a 1/4 inch washer and plastic knob underneath the cone thread base. You will later remove this to place your machine on the carriage. Next, install the cone thread guide assembly on the left or right handles, again depending on the side your thread feeds onto your sewing machine. To do this, place a number 10 hex nut and then a 3/16 flat washer on each eye bolt. Next, thread the eye bolts through the back 2 holes on the carriage assembly. Place another 3/16" flat washer and number 10 hex nut on the end of each bolt. You can adjust the position of each bolt by loosening the hex nuts. The bottom eye bolt should be positioned directly over the thread cone. The other eye bolt should be adjusted to match the first. To install the pedal pushing levers to your carriage assembly, first decide if you want to have the lever assembly on the right or left side of your carriage. We will assemble the carriage using the right back lever, which will put the pedal pushing lever on the right side on the front handles and on the left-hand side for the back handles. Using the left back lever would do just the opposite. Pay close attention to the diagram for this step. First, place a 1/4" washer on the end of a 45mm connector bolt, then place the bolt through the hole in the front lever that is farthest away from the end. Next, place another 1/4" washer onto the bolt, and then slide the bolt through the hole on the front right handle. If you are installing on the left side, place this piece on the front left handle. With the bolt through the front right handle hole, place a smaller 3/16" washer and a 1/4" nylock nut onto the end of the bolt. As you will do with all the nylock nuts in this step, tighten the nut but leave it just loose enough to still be able to spin the washer underneath. On the middle lever, place a 45mm bolt with a 1/4" washer through the middle hole just above the bottom cutout part of the middle lever. On the end of the bolt, place another 1/4" washer and then slide the bolt through the hole in the hump on the top of the handle. Fasten the part in place by placing a smaller 3/16" washer and 1/4" nylock on the end of the bolt. Tighten the nylock, but do not over-tighten the nylock nut. On the right back lever, place a 45mm bolt with a 1/4" washer already installed through the hole on the longer side. Next, place a 1/4" washer on the end of the bolt and place the bolt through the hole on the back of your handle. Place a smaller 3/16" washer on the bolt followed by a 1/4" nylock nut. Tighten the nylock nut as you've done previously. To install your lever linkage assembly, first place a 1/4" washer on a 40mm bolt. Then place the bolt through either hole on the front lever linkage. On the end of this bolt, place another 1/4" washer and then slide the bolt through the hole on your front lever. Fasten the pieces by placing a smaller 3/16" washer and 1/4" nylock nut onto the end of the bolt, and again slightly tighten the nylock nut. Now take a 35mm bolt and place a 1/4" washer on it. Then place the bolt through the hole in the cutout part of the middle lever. With the bolt sticking through the middle lever, place another 1/4" washer and then slide the bolt through the other hole on the front lever linkage. Place a 3/16" washer and 1/4" nylock onto the end of the bolt. Now take another 40mm bolt and place a 1/4" washer on it. Place the bolt through one end of the back lever linkage. Place an additional 1/4" washer on the end of the bolt and push the bolt through the middle hole on the middle lever. Place a 3/16" washer and nylock nut on the end of the bolt and tighten. Next, place a 1/4" washer on the end of a 35mm bolt and place the bolt through the cutout part of the back lever. Now place another 1/4" washer on the end of the bolt sticking through the back lever and slide the bolt through the hole on the back lever linkage. Place a 3/16" washer and nylock nut onto the end of the bolt and tighten. With the linkage assembly completed, test the movement of the assembly, making sure all the joints are loose enough to allow movement but not too loose. Now assemble the pedal clamp to the handle assembly by first pushing a 1/4" by 3" carriage bolt through the top hole on your middle lever. Now place two pedal clamp spacers on the bolt with the hollowed out side toward the bolt head. Now place a 3/16" washer and a jam nut onto the bolt and completely tighten the jam nut. Place another pedal clamp spacer on the end of the bolt with the hollow side toward the jam nut. Slide the pedal clamp onto the end of the bolt with the bolt going through the long slot, followed by a larger fender washer and a plastic knob. Next, slide the pedal clamp wheel onto a 35mm bolt and place the bolt through the hole in the bottom of the pedal clamp. Place a 3/16" washer and nylock nut onto the end of the bolt and slightly tighten. Now place your top and bottom carriages on the frame, making sure to line up the wheels with the track. Move the platforms along the track and be sure each wheel is making contact and rolling. If a wheel is not making contact with the track while the others are, a slight adjustment may be necessary and can be done according to the picture shown. Your sewing machine will sit on the top carriage. You will now assemble the stylus clamp. Do this by installing two 3-inch carriage bolts into the holes of the stylus clamp base. You will notice the stylus clamp and clamp base are very similar. The base piece you want is the one with the slightly smaller holes. Position the clamp base according to the picture in the instructions, being sure the bolts are installed in the proper direction. With the bolts pushed through the holes, install a 3/16 flat washer and a 1/4-inch jam nut on each bolt, and tighten the nuts completely. Next, install the stylus mount onto the bolt closest to the rounded end of the clamp base, using the picture in the instructions as a guide. Place the stylus clamp onto the end of both bolts, followed by 2 fender washers and 2 plastic knobs. Now you will install the stylus into the clamp assembly. Again, using the instruction picture as a guide, place a 2-inch eye bolt through the hole in the stylus mount, then put a fender washer and plastic knob onto the end of the eye bolt. Before tightening the knob, place the wooden stylus through the eye of the bolt. Then tighten the knob to hold the stylus in place. To attach the stylus assembly to the carriage, choose which side of the carriage you wish to attach to. Loosen the knobs to widen out the clamps. Slide the clamps onto the handles and tighten the knobs to secure the stylus assembly in place. There are 2 carriage stops that attach to each end of the frame on the back track support. To assemble these, first thread a 2 1/4-inch bolt through the hole in the carriage stop base. Next, place a 3/16-inch flat washer and 1/4-inch jam nut onto the end of the bolt and tighten the jam nut completely. Now place the carriage stop clamp onto the bolt, with the lip facing toward the carriage stop base. Follow that with a fender washer and finally a plastic knob. Repeat these steps for the other carriage stop. To install the stops onto the frame, loosen the knob and place the carriage stop clamp onto the outside of the frame and the stop base on the inside. The lips of the wood pieces will hook underneath the lip of the aluminum track support. Once your quilt is installed, slide these stops along the aluminum track support and position them so that you stop your carriage from allowing your machine to sew beyond the edge of the quilt. To install the optional 4th rail kit, you will first attach the 2 4th rail brackets onto each back leg. The brackets install on the insides of the legs. Install one bracket first and leave the other until after the rail is installed on one end. Place 2 30mm connector bolts through the holes in the leg and into the 4th rail bracket. Be sure the L or R face toward the inside of the frame. The bolts will thread into the T-nuts already installed in the brackets. Tighten these completely using the Allen wrench. Assemble the 4th rail following the same steps as the other rails you have assembled. No ratchet wheel will be placed on the square end cap of this rail. Place one end of the rail into the assembled bracket. Place the opposite end of the rail into the unassembled bracket and fasten the bracket to the back leg as you did the first. Fasten the rail in place by threading a 7/8" screw through the plastic end cap and into the rail ends. You have now completed the assembly of your Little Gracie quilting frame. If you have assembled the frame in crib size, you will have hardware and wood pieces left over. Store any extra parts in a cool, dry place for future use.
Hi, I'm Sally Scott. I'm here to introduce you to the Grace Machine Quilter Pro and the Little Gracie. We are going to show you how to put the sewing machine onto it and then put fabric on both frames. We are going to show you how to put the sewing machine onto this frame. First off, loosen this spool holder off of the carriage and remove this pole that is going to go through the sewing machine. And set it aside for a minute. Then take your sewing machine and push it as far as you can through the carriage so that you have room to put this little spool holder back in properly. And then also take your pole and put it through the arm of your sewing machine. So now your machine is in there. We are going to start by putting leader cloths on each of these poles. We have 3 different sizes of leader cloths. We use leader cloths so that you can get to the very end of your quilt without having to change one fabric to another pole at the end. On this pole that's called also your first pole or your catch-all pole, because it's going to hold everything on it, it's got a short leader cloth, about 10 inches wide. The pole that is going to be on top out here at this side is going to be probably about 16 to 18 inches in width. And then your pole that is for your top fabric is going to be your widest, and it's going to be about 24 inches wide. You can make these the length that you need to, crib, twin, queen, king, but they need to be a good width that will fit underneath the sewing machine. So we're going to start by putting this smaller one onto our catch-all pole. And by doing so, we are going to take this tubing out of the pole and apply it. Now, I have made leader cloths, and on them I have stitched about 1.5 inches down from the top that shows me where I can put it into the little slot on the pole. Also, I have stitched about 1/2 inch on the other end. That's going to show me where I can pin my fabric to it. And to do so, I'm going to start my tubing into the pole. And I'm going to follow that little line that I have sewed and use that for my guideline. And I'm just going to kind of push it down in as I go, as much as I can, and then I will take my little tool and push it even harder so it stays in well. But I'm just going to kind of push it in and secure it. Now with this one, with this leader cloth, it is going to have to go underneath your sewing machine. Everybody has their way of doing that, but just slide it under the presser foot and work with it that way. And if you need to, you can slide your machine back and forth so that now that I'm down at this end, I can slide my machine through and finish off at this end. And now that I've got that pushed almost all the way down, I'm going to take my little tool here, my Faber-Fast tool, and just push that in all the way. Again, I need to slide my machine away, and it's in. That's your basic leader cloth attachment. And then you do the same on the other 2 rails. Okay, now that you have all of your leader cloths on each pole, we are going to start by putting our backing on first, and we are going to put it onto this top pole here. Also, I have got a little line here that shows me where the center of my leader cloth is, so that I can match it up to the center of my top and bottom fabrics. Also, having 3 poles like this is going to eliminate you from having to baste your quilt first. We are going to start by pinning, and we're going to start at the center and work out on each side. This little line that I have sewed about 1/2 inch up is going to be my guideline to where to pin. And then I'm going to start by pinning my backing on to this top pole. I use these little flat pins because they roll in very nicely. They don't get real bulky with the fabric. And they have a little bit longer pin part to them so that they can take up more. But if you would like to baste your backing to this leader cloth, you can. After you have pinned your backing to this pole, then start rolling it and roll toward yourself. And also brush your fabric out as you do it so it can roll nice and even. We are now going to start by putting our top fabric on, and we are going to find our middle if you need to, and then put it at the middle of your leader cloth, and it's going to go on this third pole. We're going to start from the center out again using your little line that you have sewed as your guideline. And then again, you're going to roll your fabric. This time you're going to roll away from you. Make sure things are straight as far as your leader cloths go, and roll away from you. On the GMQ, it has a fourth pole. With the Little Gracie, the fourth pole is an option. But our next thing we are going to do is actually put the batting on, and we're just going to put it on this fourth pole and kind of have it out of the way until we get our other fabrics ready. And I'm just going to start from one side here and work my way down with this tubing. I'm going to get my batting kind of in place and push it in as much as possible, and then I'll take the little Fast tool and push it in all the way. And then this you can roll onto this fourth pole. And then when you're ready for it, all you'll need to do is just bring it up and pin it on with the wrist. We are now going to take our back fabric and pin it to our take-up rail leader cloth. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to center it and pin it, and start from center and work your way out on both sides. And then you can kind of roll and get a little start on this to make it flat, so that then you can bring your batting up and your top fabric up and pin to it. We are now going to bring our batting up, and to do that, just reach down between your bottom and your top fabric and pull it up, and you're going to bring it through those two poles and up and over your backing. And if you need to, straighten this fabric out so that you can kind of keep it in a nice place, and lay your batting across. Bring it down about 1 inch from where you pinned earlier. And then you're going to be ready after that to bring your top fabric. And you want to unroll just enough that you can bring it up and pin it to your bottom along with the batting. Go along and pin in a few places so that you're keeping everything together as you start. And then your quilt is ready to start sewing on. Okay, Okay, now that we've got our fabric on, we're really actually ready to start sewing. We want to make sure our machine is hooked up properly. We want to make sure that all your cords or anything are coming toward the back where I'm standing here. If you're using the foot pedal to your sewing machine, then you will be using these little handles here, and you want to take the little cord of the foot pedal and plug it into your machine back here. Also, you want to have this so that as long as you push down onto this little lever, it's going to push your foot pedal for you. If it's not working quite right, you may have to adjust this little lever. We're going to use the speed control, and we've attached it right here, but you can also attach it out here further if you're working from that side, or you can attach it back here if you're working back here. The speed control takes the place of your foot pedal. It works with a lot of machines, and it will plug in right here where your foot pedal normally plugs in. Also, your lamp. That's another optional thing that you can use, and it fits right up here in this little groove of your carriage, and then bring the cord back and wrap it around to get it out of the way and plug it in back here where you've plugged your machine in. You can also take some of those little twisties and put these cords together so that you're not fighting a lot of cords back here. And make sure you've got plenty of room for movement back here with the extension cord that you're using. Make sure you have plenty of room. Okay, when you are ready to roll your quilt again, you need to undo your bungee clamps. And also, the cogwheel stops right here. You need to undo. And then roll with your catch-all pole. And then tighten back up. You don't want to roll things too tight. You want to have a little bit of ease in your fabric. Otherwise, you break needles very easy if you're tight through here. You want it smooth underneath and on top, but you do not want it tight. And then put your bungee clamps back in. Another thing that you need to take into consideration here is the pull against the throat of the machine. If it is too tight against the throat of the machine and your fabric or your machine is not moving easily, then you need to lift this up. And to do so, you come over to the side and raise it just a little bit so that it's barely up off the throat of your sewing machine. Take your machine down to the other end and do the same. And you can also use these lines along here to make sure it's the same on both sides. And then tighten it, but you just barely want it up off your throat plate. Okay, I just want to give you some tips and uses on some of the products that are really good. It's very important that you use a very good thread when you're machine quilting. If you're using all cotton fabrics, then I'll stick with the all cotton thread. If you want your quilting to really show up a lot, use a variegated thread. It makes it show real good. But if you want your design on your quilt to stand out more, use a plain colored thread that blends in with one of the basic colors of your quilt. Also, your little lid that goes over your thread is very important on some types of thread that you use. If you're using a thread that has a rough edge like this, and your thread is coming up through that rough edge, that's a good way for a thread to break easily. And using your little thread lid is helpful in preventing that. Also, the type of needles that you use are important. For most of machine quilting, a size 100/16 is a very popular size. If you go with something a little smaller, then they break easily and they bend easily. Also, your denim jeans needle. Instead of using a basic quilting needle, use a denim jeans needle, the 100/16. If you're using a real heavy fabric in quilting, you may want to go with the 110/18. But this is a very good size, the 100/16. Another neat thing to have is a bobbin holder. This way you can pre-wind a lot of bobbins and have them ready to go when you're needing them, instead of having to stop every time to do it. Also, scissors are important. There's a couple different little types of scissors. The Grace Machine Quilter has a place for you to put your scissors, and just a little pair is wonderful. Or the little nippers are even great too. So just reach down and nip your thread. Okay, we also have our Fabrifast tool, which will come with the Grace Machine Quilter and the Little Gracie. A couple other things that I want to stress a lot is keeping your machine going at a very good speed, but don't be in a hurry in moving it around. That's one of the things that a lot of people do, and that breaks needles real easy when you try to move faster than what you've got your sewing machine going. If you need to look at what you've done underneath and see how your quilting is going, you loosen up these little knobs on each side and then pull this out, and you can look and see what you've done from underneath. And then you just lay it back in and tighten these knobs up. One other neat feature that the GMQ has are the leveling feet. You need to adjust these a little bit, especially if your machine is not staying in one place. If it's starting to scoot down your frame on its own, then these feet need to be adjusted. On the Little Gracie, if you're having trouble with your machine not staying in one place, then get some little slats of wood or something and level your legs that way. On your backing, if you need to piece it together, if it's at all possible, piece it with the seam going horizontal this way. If not, then trim your fabric where you're going to be piecing it together and sew your two raw edges together to make your seam. That will give that seam a little more flexibility in dealing with the rest of the fabric, because where it is sewed, it's going to pull tighter than it does on your outer edges. So if you can, cut a little bit away and then sew your seam down. And do not sew a real teeny stitch on there. Don't use a basting stitch, just a nice stitch that will have a little bit of give right there. One other neat feature that the Grace Machine Quilters have are these little stoppers that you can place anywhere along the back here in order to stop your machine where you do not want to be able to quilt. This is really nice when you're doing little sections of a quilt and you do not want to go out of the seam line or something like that. You can put these stoppers anywhere along here so that either way you can have a good stop.
Anytime you move your carriage, whether stitching freehand or following a pattern, let your grip remain loose and relaxed. Avoid white knuckles. One way to help you stay relaxed is to let your body move or flow with the carriage. Avoid being timid, and your stitches will begin to look great.